The tray slipped slightly in her hands as the numbers on the screen behind the glass wall froze, then turned red. And in that silent second, an entire floor of executives felt $100 million begin to vanish. The cafeteria was full. The smell of coffee and fried onions hung in the air, and no one noticed the young waitress wiping a table near the window, except when she stopped moving and stared at the scrolling error code on the giant display, meant only for board meetings. It was the kind of error that ended careers, shut down companies, and made headlines by nightfall. And it had just appeared in the middle of the biggest product launch the company had ever attempted. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of ordinary people, please take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel The Thread If Kindness. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Her name was Lena, and she had been serving food in that building for almost 2 years, invisible by design. She worked double shifts to cover her father's medical bills and her younger brother's college fees, memorizing orders, smiling through exhaustion, and telling herself that stability mattered more than dreams. What almost no one knew was that Lena had once studied software engineering before life forced her to choose survival over ambition. She never talked about it. Degrees don't matter when you're refilling coffee for people who don't know your name. As panic spread behind the glass wall, Lena's eyes traced the error message again. It wasn't just random code to her. It was familiar, painfully familiar, the kind of cascading failure that came from one tiny logic loop written under pressure. She felt her chest tighten, not from fear, but from recognition. She saw in her mind how one overlooked condition could trigger a chain reaction, locking transactions, freezing accounts, and burning millions every minute the system stayed down. She told herself it wasn't her place. She reminded herself that security would handle it, that executives with salaries bigger than her lifetime earnings were already scrambling. But the screen kept flashing red, and she thought of her father lying awake at night worrying about hospital bills, of her brother counting coins for textbooks, of how close she always was to the edge. Lena did something that felt reckless and inevitable at the same time. She stepped forward, past the line she had never crossed, and raised her voice just enough to be heard through the open door. Her heart pounded as she explained, in simple terms, what she thought the problem was and how it could be stopped. The room went quiet in the strangest way, not calm but suspended, as if everyone was deciding whether to ignore her or throw her out. Security shifted. A manager frowned. Somewhere at the table sat the CEO, a man known for decisive moves and unforgiving standards, watching her like she was a puzzle he hadn't expected. They let her finish. Someone passed her a tablet almost as a test. Lena's hands shook as she typed, years of buried knowledge rushing back like muscle memory. She rerouted a process, added a safeguard, and forced a controlled restart. For a few endless seconds, nothing happened. Then the red vanished. Numbers stabilized. The loss meter stopped climbing. $100 million didn't disappear that day, and the building exhaled all at once. What followed was not applause or instant praise. It was confusion, whispers, and the slow realization that the person who had just saved the company was wearing a cafeteria uniform. Lena returned to her station, expecting that to be the end of it, expecting maybe a warning for stepping out of line. Instead, the hours that followed felt unreal. Meetings were canceled. Executives argued in hushed tones. Emails flew. And Lena kept working, wiping tables, serving lunch, wondering if she had just ruined the only job keeping her family afloat. By evening, she was asked to wait. The CEO wanted to see her. The walk to the top floor felt longer than her entire commute home. She thought about what she would say if she was fired, how she would explain it to her father, how thin the safety net really was. The office was quiet, city lights blinking beyond the windows, and the CEO listened as she explained her past, her choices, and why she never told anyone what she knew. There was no judgment in his expression, only something like recognition. The next morning, the entire company gathered. What the CEO did next stunned everyone, not because it was flashy, but because it was rare. He didn't just thank Lena or offer a reward. He announced a new internal policy recognizing hidden talent, starting with her. He offered her a position in the engineering department, full support to finish her degree, and a platform to ensure no voice with insight would ever be dismissed because of a uniform or a title. He acknowledged, publicly, that leadership sometimes fails when it forgets to look beyond appearances. Lena's life didn't change in a single perfect moment. She still struggled. She still felt out of place in rooms full of people who had taken smoother paths, but something fundamental shifted. She walked into work knowing she belonged there, not because someone saved her, but because she had saved herself and others were finally willing to see it. Her father's treatments became manageable. Her brother finished college. And Lena became known not as the waitress who fixed a problem, but as the engineer who reminded a company what humility and awareness looked like. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that potential often hides in plain sight, please take a moment now to like, share, and engage with this video. Stories only travel as far as people are willing to carry them. Before we end, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with the word "seen" if you believe that no one should be invisible, no matter their job or background. The screen no longer flashed red after that day, but something brighter replaced it. A quiet understanding that sometimes the difference between loss and salvation stands right in front of us, holding a tray, waiting to be seen.